Bine ați venit, stimați oameni, la această emisiune Esențe spirituale. Intenționăm cu ajutorul lui Dumnezeu ca în 30 de minute să ne focalizăm atenția pe următorul subiect: pandemie, escatologie, sfârșitul timpului. În ocazia aceasta îl avem ca invitat pe Wahlen. Dumnealui este pastor, profesor, este director asociat la Institutul de Cercetare Biblică din Statele Unite. Acest Institut de Cercetare Biblică a fost înființat de Conferința Generală a Bisericii Adventiste de ziua 7-a în anul 1975. Și în ocazia aceasta îi vom adresa întrebări pentru a vedea care este planul lui Dumnezeu și idealul lui Dumnezeu cu privire la noi în aceste condiții de nenorocire mondială care ne afectează pe noi toți. Rămâneți cu noi pentru următoarele minute. Welcome to Romania. Welcome to Spiritual Essence. Elder Wahlen, it's a privilege for us to have you here. We are making
Thank you. It's very nice to be here.
We are making this series because we want to help all the Romanian people who watch us and all the English speakers who watch us. We want to help them get some more of the plan of God, get some more of what the Bible has to say, especially in this unique time we all have been through. We know you more as BRI, Biblical Research Institute Associate Director. Please do tell us something about this institution. It's an institution of the General Conference, Seventh-day Adventist Church. Its office is in the headquarters of the GC. Tell us about its mission, about its role. Why do we need it?
Okay, so thank you for that question. Of course, we're located in Silver Spring, Maryland, just north of Washington, D.C., in the world headquarters, as you mentioned, of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. The Biblical Research Institute has a threefold purpose. Number one, it's to foster and promote theological unity. Number two, it is to answer questions and act as a resource, theological and biblical resource for the world church. And three, it is to educate and produce materials, including online and through our books, that will be of help to the world church and also beyond.
All right. Well, how can we get in touch with studies, with articles on net?
Our Biblical Research Institute address online is adventistbiblicalresearch.org. We have a number of new books that are currently in production that will be published in the coming few months or weeks. Most significant one probably is a Biblical Hermeneutics and Adventist Approach. And that's a lengthy book of over 400 pages. We also have a couple of volumes that we're publishing on the Sabbath in the Old Testament and the Sabbath in the New Testament and theology. A book on sexuality in our family and marriage series, as well as a book on eschatology from an Adventist perspective.
All right. I heard what we are saying, and I loved it because you talked about unity, about Bible, about eschatology. Thank you for your words, and we will have a lot of challenging Bible passages for you. We will have questions because we love the Lord, we love the Bible, but we must admit we don't understand it 100%, and we want to get it more in our experience. But before we get to the deep and difficult questions about the Bible and salvation, we'd like to get to know you more, because you know it's important, the message, but the messenger is also important. credibility, personal connection. Tell us something about your life, about your personal testimony, please.
Well, it's an interesting, I guess, interesting testimony. First of all, I was not raised in a Christian home, did not have an upbringing that appreciated the Bible. In high school, when I was in my teenage years, was an atheist, didn't believe in God. And when my Christian friends said, you should believe in Jesus, he died for you on the cross, and if you don't, you'll go to hell, that did not encourage me to believe in the Bible or in God or in Jesus. It was actually, as they talked to me, almost like a foreign language. But after I finished high school and before I went into college, I was planning on a scientific career. I began to realize I should know something about the Bible. Someone had given me the book, The Great Controversy. And so I looked through the table of contents, picked the chapter called The Origin of Evil, which sounded most interesting, and began reading. And as I read, I was unprepared for what I found because I had objections in my mind. And it was like every objection was answered beautifully, one after the next. It was almost like God and I were having a conversation. I can't describe how powerful that experience was.
I am amazed. You said you didn't go to church, you didn't have a religious background, a Christian one. How come? Didn't you attend a church? And if that's so, how did you understand that chapter from the Great Controversy? Wasn't it a foreign language too for you?
That's a good question. No, it was not a foreign language to me because it explained the Bible. Now, I have to say I didn't know anything about the Bible. If you had asked me where Genesis was or turned to Genesis, I'd look in the table of contents. Had no idea. I'd never opened the Bible before. And so this was a way for me to think about God and the Bible in a new way. And I realized that the God I had rejected as an atheist was not the God of the Bible. The God of the Bible was a God of love. He gave Jesus to die for us, yes, on the cross, and atonement for my sins and the sins of the world. But not someone that would perpetuate evil and sin eternally, but has never created it in the beginning. Evil was not anything that God introduced. The Bible speaks about it arising in another way. And it was also a surprise to me about that. And also that God would put an end to evil and sin. It actually made perfect sense. And it was a beautiful presentation of how God would deal with evil and sin in a way that respects our freedom. Because if God is a God of love, then it has to be based on freedom. Because love cannot exist in a forced environment. I can't force someone to love me. God can't force me to love him. It has to be something that is naturally grows through coming to know him. And that was my experience. The more I knew God from the Bible, the more I came to love him and Jesus as my Savior, and it was a natural thing to accept him and to give my life to him.
Well, you didn't just give your life to him, you made a huge step, or God made a miracle from atheism to take you and to bring you to be a biblical scholar and to teach others to love him and to know him. That's a huge step.
It was actually a huge step for me because I had been accepted to Massachusetts Institute of Technology and I had planned to pursue a scientific career in astrophysics. That was my interest at the time. In fact, I I realized I hadn't learned anything in the first 18 years of my life that I really needed to know for eternity. And so MIT would not help me with that. And I decided I wanted to attend a Seventh-day Adventist college, which is what I did. And then the Lord led me very soon. In some months, I started with a science major, but He persuaded me before that first year was over that He wanted me in the ministry. He intervened in my life at a very specific time, where I could choose one direction or another. And so I realized that that was His providence, and that He wanted me to devote my life to ministry. And I've appreciated that assurance ever since. He's given me much confirmation that that was His will for my life. As we look back, we can see the choices we've made and how God's plan has guided. I think this is not unique to me. I think everyone who knows the Lord can testify to the fact that He guides us, He leads us, He's promised to do that. And I met my wife there. We have a wonderful family, a daughter and son. They're grown now. Our son is married and has 2 grandsons of ours, twin boys, and we're just delighted. So as I look back, I can see many blessings as a result of following God's plan, following His will.
Brother Clinton, I have to admit something. Personally, I used to be biased, or I had some misconception about the word leaders in the church. I thought they were coming from other, worlds, with a perfect family, 5th or 7th generation from the Adventist pioneers, genius and holy. And when I see a testimony like this, for me is encouraging, because I see that all the children of God are alike, and we need the same grace, we have the same power and the same mission. Yeah, for me, your testimony is not ordinary.
It's encouraging for me too, because I had no idea how God would lead me, of course. But as I look back, I can imagine every step of the way He's prepared me for what I'm doing now, and what I did in the past. He never allows us to be led otherwise than we would choose to be if we could see the end from the beginning and discern the purpose He has for us as co-workers with Him.
Amen. Amen. Thank you for your personal things you shared with us. Please now let's get into the main issue of this episode, which is pandemic and eschatology. Is this COVID-19 pandemic different in some way from the Black Death, which killed 1/3 of Europe, or the Spanish flu just a few years ago? Is it different with respect to the plan of God, the prophecies? Because there are people in Romania who say that it's normal. We will get to a normal lifestyle. The end of time is nothing to worry about. On the other extreme, there are people who say that that's it, that's the end. A few more months, a few more years, and that's it. They even set dates, 4,000 years from creation to the Lord Jesus Christ, 2 more 1,000 years from His baptism. That makes 2027 at most, the second coming. What do you know from the Bible? What does the Bible teach us about the second coming in regard to this pandemic and the eschatology we see in the scriptures?
Well, we have from Jesus a very important sermon, what is sometimes called his Sermon on the Mount of Olives. It's found in all three of the Synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And of course, we're most familiar with Matthew 24. And in Matthew 24, it indicates, Jesus has a kind of a forecast of world history. It's very interesting. And he speaks about wars and rumors of wars in Matthew 24, verse 6. He says, "For all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet." And he talks about nation rising against nation, and famines, pestilences, and earthquakes in various places. And then in verse 8, he says, all these are the beginning of sorrows. And as the chapter continues, he forecasts the destruction of Jerusalem, which happened 40 years later in AD 70, about 40, not quite 40 years later. And then if we would look at Luke chapter 21, which is the same sermon, but it adds details that we don't find in Matthew 24. He says that in verse, after describing the destruction of Jerusalem, he speaks of signs in the sun, the moon, and the stars, and then on the earth, distress of nations with perplexity. So these signs, sun, moon, and stars, he says that this would come after the times of the Gentiles. In Matthew 24, it's called the Great Tribulation. This is the prophecy of Daniel 7 and also in Revelation 13 and other passages, which speaks of a 1260 prophetic day or year time period of persecution during the Christian era. And at the end of this, close of this period, in the late 18th, early 19th centuries would be these signs, which were in fact fulfilled. The dark day of May 1780, falling of the stars in November of 1833. And then it speaks of the rise in these prophecies of a remnant people that keep the commandments of God and have the faith of Jesus, have the testimony of Jesus Christ. These are signs indicative of the times, that are approaching the present time. And in Luke specifically, Luke 21, this verse I read, verse 25, after it says that it refers to the distress of nations with perplexity, it indicates the sea and the waves roaring. And for a long time I thought, well, what is that? Who is going to be fearful of the sea and the waves? And then, we've had in recent years striking the country of Indonesia, a massive tsunami that wiped out whole cities, hundreds of thousands of people. And then after that, a few years later, hitting Japan and this nuclear reactor that caused great damage and devastation. Of course, we could look at the United States and Hurricane Katrina that wiped out for a major part of the major city of New Orleans. So after these events, one after the next, I thought to myself, well, the sea and the waves roaring is something to pay attention to. And then the verse 26, men's hearts failing them from fear and the expectation of those things which are coming on the earth. And of course, in a similar sense, we have the rise of terrorism in various places. And this pandemic, coming directly to your question, it's not, from one standpoint, it's not as destructive, certainly, as the Black Death of the Middle Ages that struck Europe and decimated, more than decimated, the population of Europe, or the tens of millions that died during the Spanish flu in the early part of the 20th century. We haven't had nearly so many deaths, I don't think, from this, although it was maybe predicted as possible. On the other hand, the global impact of this is unique and unprecedented. That's right. Even the world wars of the 20th century did not displace and dislodge people from their normal way of life to the extent that this has. Yes, it caused great destruction, great suffering, many millions of deaths, these wars, terrible things. But we also have to keep in mind, while that is also in a way fulfilling this prophecy of Luke 21, these signs are intensifying and globalizing in a way that is more intense and impactful than ever before. I think the Lord wants to get our attention. And then it says in verse 26, the next phrase, for the powers of the heavens will be shaken, then they will see the Son of Man coming in clouds with power and great glory. And I like verse 28. Now when these things begin to happen, look up, lift up your heads, because your redemption draws near. We don't have to be afraid, as others are. We can know that God is in control of this planet, and He has foreseen this. He will protect His people, and He will use this as a means to reach people for His kingdom.
So, in a few words, what can we say in regard to the second coming as a time? Can we think about it as soon, as imminent? Can we postpone it? How does the Bible teach us to live our life with respect to the end of time?
That's maybe one of the most important questions of all. What does it mean for me and my life today? I've already mentioned the fulfillment of Bible prophecy. We can know from these long time prophecies, including the 2,300 evening and morning time prophecy of Daniel 8:14 that I haven't even mentioned, that we are living in the very end of this earth's history. One interesting thing is that many people quote 2 Chronicles chapter 7 verse 14 because it refers to what we should do in light of troubles and how to prepare our hearts and to seek the Lord. But often we don't read the verse that comes before it, verse 13, because God allows these things to happen. It's not that He causes them necessarily, but He allows them to happen to wake us up, to alert us to the times in which we live. So in verse 13, 2 Chronicles 7, He says, when I shut up heaven and there is no rain, or command the locust to devour the land, or send pestilence among my people, if my people, this is the familiar verse 14 now, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and heal their land.
Amen. Thank you. We have just a few more minutes. If you had to choose one word to represent the best, the message from this episode about eschatology, the end of time, the soon return of Jesus, what would that word be? This show is called Spiritual Essence. What would be the essence of this message for tonight?
I would say the word awareness. Awareness of the times in which we live, awareness of the Bible prophecies that I've mentioned, awareness of what God is longing for in our hearts, in our lives. His leading, the forgiveness that He offers freely, and for His working in our lives. Awareness that He is ready to work in us and through us and help us.
Thank you. A very good summarize awareness. Next episode we'll be talking about what does getting ready for meeting the Lord mean? What does getting prepared mean? And this time was a good step before that. Meanwhile, we'll be thinking about our children, our grandchildren, and I want you to give in a few seconds a short message specifically to young people. You know, they face a lot of problems with their school, jobs, love and marriage, money. What do you have to tell them from the Bible, from the Lord, with respect to what we have been talking about now?
Well, I was a young person when the Lord reached into my heart, opened my mind. I'm deep down a fairly stubborn person. I don't change my mind very easily. But the Lord opened the door of my heart by really, I guess, encouraging me even before I realized that He was encouraging me to seek Him by reading this book, The Great Controversy, by beginning to study the Bible and think about it seriously. And it changed my life. It changed the whole course of my life. I've never been the same person since. I look at my life in a way like BC, before Christ, and AD, in the year of our Lord. It is something that I would never have imagined had I not given God a chance. And so my appeal would be for every young person who might be listening now, give the Lord a chance. Open the Bible, pray, ask Him to guide you. And I believe He will make Himself known in a powerful way.
Amen. Dr. Wahlen, thank you for your time. We can't wait for the next episode. Meanwhile, send our greetings to your wife, children, and the little twins. And we'll be in touch by the grace of the Lord next time. God bless you.
Thank you very much, and God bless you too.
Stimați privitori, rămânem în ocazia aceasta cu dorința de a fi vigilenți, de a fi pregătiți, de a fi conștienți și treji cu privire la lucrurile care ne înconjoară și cu privire la relația noastră pe care o dorim cât mai în clocot vis-a-vis de Dumnezeu, de planul Lui de mântuire și de slujirea pe care vrem să o oferim lumii întregi. Sunt Cristian Trenchea și din platoul Conferinței Moldova vă invit pentru următoarea ocazie la emisiunea Esențe spirituale. Până atunci puteți viziona aceste emisiuni pe proiect m.ro. O zi binecuvântată!